we've likely always viewed as a character flaw and reframe it as the very foundation of multi-talented genius. Okay, let's dive right into this. I want you to take a mental walk around your room right now. Look at those dusty yoga mats tucked under the bed. Think about that copy of Think and Grow Rich on your nightstand that's, well, basically just a coaster for your morning coffee now. And what about that little green owl on your phone constantly screaming at you because you abandoned your Spanish lessons 6 months ago? Does your life kind of feel like a museum of unfinished ambitions? Does it make you wonder if your internal operating system is just broken? Society loves to hand you that tired old line, right? Jack of all trades, master of none. People might look at your project hopping and automatically assume you lack focus. But I want this to really sink in for a second. You are not lazy. You do not lack willpower. The truth is, there's absolutely nothing wrong with your drive. The difference between you and someone who masters a single craft isn't about personality. It's about strategy and really understanding the unique way your brain is wired. To get why you feel like you have this glitch, we've got to look at something scientists call the knowledge instinct. See, our brains absolutely love the feeling of no longer being confused. When you finally grasp a new concept, your brain releases this massive hit of dopamine. It floods you with that feel-good chemical during those fast, early stages of learning. Let's actually track how this dopamine journey works. Say you decide to learn photography. Day one is what we call the novice high. Everything is magical. You learn about aperture and background blur, and honestly, every 5 minutes you have an aha moment. You are just flooded with dopamine. But jump to day 15, and you hit the plateau. You know the buttons, but taking a truly artistic photo requires hours of editing and patience. By day 30, you're deep in the dopamine dip. As your learning speed inevitably slows down, that easy dopamine, it shuts off entirely. And this brings us to a really fascinating phenomenon called reward prediction error. Your highly sensitive brain suddenly turns into a strict, ruthless accountant. It looks at the situation and realizes, wait, I have to put in 10 times more effort just to get 1% of new knowledge? Yeah, this is a terrible deal. So it triggers a dopamine withdrawal. You aren't quitting because you're lazy. You're quitting because your subconscious calculates that the reward just doesn't match the effort anymore. Now, quick question for you, and be honest here. Back in school, were you the smart kid? Were you the one who learned things quickly, barely had to study, and somehow still got high scores? Because if the answer is yes, listen closely. You are at a very high risk of falling into what we call the mastery trap. See, because you learned fast, your brain actually became addicted to fluency. Things came easily to you. And because of that, you never really developed a crucial psychological muscle, distress tolerance. That's the emotional endurance required to sit with boredom, stuckness, and confusion without just reacting by running away. People with sharp intelligence often have weak emotional immunity. So when the work becomes repetitive, like say, practicing guitar finger drills 1,000 times, it actually triggers real pain in your brain. Your habit of jumping to new projects, it's literally just a psychological escape mechanism. So how do we fix this and start building up that emotional immune system? We use a technique called the 10-minute rule. Think of this like that final shaking rep at the gym. That's when the muscle actually grows, right? Step 1. When the intense boredom hits and you desperately want to scroll social media, just recognize it. Step 2, give your brain a direct order. We will rest, but in exactly 10 minutes. Step 3, start a strict countdown timer. And step 4, you don't even have to do great work during this time. You can literally just stare at the screen, but you absolutely cannot switch tasks. Behavioral science shows that urges peak and fade within 10 minutes. By surviving this peak, you actually sever the neural pathways of procrastination. Next up, we have to trick the fear center of your brain, the amygdala. Big goals like I'm going to become a full-stack developer look like a terrifying saber-toothed tiger to your brain. It triggers a massive runaway response. Instead, we use the Japanese philosophy of Kaizen. You break tasks down until they are literally a joke to your fear. Don't commit to practicing guitar for an hour. Commit to playing exactly 3 notes. Commit to reading just 1 single paragraph. By doing this, you shrink the tiger and slip quietly right past your brain's defense wall. And you know what happens? You never just play 3 notes. You end up playing for 5 minutes, maybe 10, maybe an hour. If you want to learn drawing, coding, and French all at the same time, don't grind like a maniac. Scatter small pebbles every day. 1 line of code, 1 pencil sketch. By turning this painful process into a game you always win, you activate your prefrontal cortex, your logic center, and you feed your motivation with healthy, sustainable dopamine. But this naturally brings up a pretty big question. When is it actually the right time to quit? Society constantly claims that winners never quit. Well, that is completely wrong. The most successful people in the world quit all the time. The difference is entirely in how they quit. Emotional quitting happens right at the bottom of that learning dip, simply because the work feels too hard or pointless. Successful people, on the other hand, use strategic quitting. They let go of a project only after realizing they've hit a dead end, or because they've harvested exactly what they needed from it. So, the absolutely crucial point here is knowing when to strategically walk away. And that brings us to the number 80. This represents the utility point. Here is the golden rule. Never, ever quit on your worst day, when emotion is lying to you. Instead, you should stop when you've captured about 80% of the core fundamentals of a skill. Let's apply this to the real world. Say you're a writer, and you want to learn photography to make better cover images for your articles. You don't need a brutal 10-year training period to become a National Geographic photographer, right? Once you know how to adjust aperture, use the rule of thirds, and do basic color correction, boom, you've reached the utility point. You have harvested the gem. Stopping right now isn't a failure. It is highly efficient time management. You aren't quitting, you're just changing the channel. So, zooming out for a second, why does your brain naturally want to collect all these seemingly random, broken pieces of different fields? Why gather a little bit of guitar, a little bit of coding, and maybe a little bit of psychology? What's the grand design here? It's all about skill stacking, the polymath's ultimate weapon. Look, in today's rapidly changing world, being a pure specialist who only does one thing is actually becoming a massive liability. Just look at the AI era battlefield. On one hand, we have the specialist. For generations, we were taught to be the sharpest nail, to do one thing perfectly. But the risk of AI replacing them is extremely high because AI can write code or translate languages way faster than any human. But then we have the bridge builder. This is the person who combines seemingly unrelated diverse skills. The replacement risk is near zero because AI completely struggles to replicate those unique human intersections. Let's look at a real-world example of a master bridge builder, James Cameron. If he were a pure director, he would have been entirely stuck when making the movie Avatar, because the 3D filming technology simply wasn't good enough at the time. But Cameron is a polymath. He stacked his directing skills with a deep understanding of physics, engineering, and a genuine passion for deep-sea diving. He didn't wait for technology to catch up, he invented a groundbreaking new camera system. By using physics to solve an art problem, he completely shattered box office records. Or consider Ryan Reynolds. If he were just a traditional actor, he'd simply be another handsome, A-list face sitting around waiting for a studio to call him with a script. But he is a polymath. He took standard Hollywood acting and stacked it with brilliant, elite viral marketing. He literally used the sarcastic humor of his Deadpool character to advertise his own companies like Aviation Gin and Mint Mobile. By stacking these diverse skills together, he built a one-man, multi-billion-dollar media empire. The creator of the Dilbert comic strip, Scott Adams, summed this up absolutely perfectly. He said, "Instead of trying to be the best at one thing, try to become very good, like top 25%, at multiple things, and then combine them. You don't need to be the absolute best in the world at any single thing. The magic, the incredible leverage comes from hitting that 80% utility point we talked about, getting into the top 25% in a few areas and fusing them together." So what you've always viewed as a flaw, that instinct that makes you easily bored with one repetitive task, is actually your greatest strength. It's actively pushing you to hunt for missing pieces. When you jump from interest to interest, you are gathering materials. You are connecting dots that most people will never even see. You are building a unique toolkit that no school can teach and absolutely no AI can copy. You are not broken. You were simply not born to do one repetitive thing for your entire life. You were born to be a bridge builder. So as we wrap up this explainer, I want to leave you with one final thought to reflect on today. Now that you understand your habit of quitting is actually a strategic search